Welcome to America's Commercial Real Estate Show, your source for intel, forecasts, and success strategies. Hello, I'm Michael Bull. We sure appreciate you being with us. This segment is brought to you by CommercialAgentSuccess.com. If you're an experienced commercial agent, do check it out. Well, today we have a great show for you. We're going to talk about social media for business. Now, we're going to talk about some tips and some strategies. We're going to talk about maybe some corporate strategies, some mistakes to avoid, and also what's new. And I think when most business people think of social media, there's a lot of different social media apps out there, and some of them may be better for certain types of businesses, but certainly it seems like a lot of them for commercial real estate, property owners and service providers and business people dealing in business to business is LinkedIn. So let's start with an expert on LinkedIn, Viveka Vengreso. She is a co-founder with Vengreso, and she's joined us on Skype. Viveka, thanks for joining us.
Hi, nice to meet you and see you.
Yes,
and be here.
And you as well. So let's get started with LinkedIn. You know,
Sure.
we do a lot of social media for our show, my company, my agent training company, and it seems like LinkedIn's the most powerful for us. What kind of businesses might LinkedIn be the most powerful of the social media out there?
Yeah, well, definitely the B2B sphere. Pretty much anyone in the B2B sphere, from a single consultant to a multinational company. But I think people are just more comfortable being on LinkedIn in the business to business arena, as compared to some folks get a little nervous about Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So the B2B world for sure. And, it does have a history of being a useful platform for job seekers, but it's so much more than that now. It's more than a job seeking platform. It's more than a Rolodex on steroids. It's really a place where you can find, connect, and engage with pretty much anyone in your industry that you're wanting to find, connect, and engage with. And it's a great marketing tool. It's a great sales tool. So I think, as far as commercial real estate or commercial realtors toolkit, hopefully LinkedIn is, if not yet, going to become a very strong part of that business.
Good.
Business toolkit.
Well, let me ask you. You mentioned that maybe people in business to business world are less nervous about LinkedIn than Twitter and the others. Why do you say that?
Well, I think I always called LinkedIn like the gateway drug. A lot of companies to social media, because a lot of companies, certainly did consider it more of like a Rolodex on steroids. And I think it's an older. Well, I know that it's an older demographic, not by a lot, but by a couple years. And you have people doing things that they're kind of used to doing in business already, right? You're used to finding, connecting, and engaging with other business professionals. A lot of people have a CRM system. The younger folks listening to the show are like, what's a Rolodex? So Rolodex CRM, it just depends on how old you are, right? But people are used to that, and they're used to going to networking events, and they're used to meeting on the golf course. And so LinkedIn is just kind of like an electronic version of that. Of course, they've brought in a lot of new features, and there's a lot of new opportunity, but I think people are kind of comfortable with that. And of course, there's the idea that Facebook is just for kids, although, my kids tell me they don't use Facebook anymore, and Instagram's just for taking pictures of your food, and Twitter is just for, voting on The Voice. So I think people understand that LinkedIn is primarily a business tool, and that's why they're a little bit more comfortable with it.
Well, our president, I think, believes that Twitter is more than an app for voting on television shows, but he certainly uses it a lot. Well, let's talk about some tips for business-to-business users, maybe something that some business-to-business users may not be thinking of with LinkedIn.
Sure. And, the thing about LinkedIn is you've got your personal profiles and your company pages. And as a business, you go, okay, well, I'm going to create a company page, which is kind of like a static website. It's not extremely interactive. You can share content there, but it's not like a personal profile. But what they don't think about is, okay, I've got all these employees, not just my sales and marketing employees, but I've got in the case of commercial real estate, maybe you've got realtors, maybe you've got stagers, maybe you've got construction people, so you've got this whole, posse of employees, and you're not thinking about how they're using LinkedIn, their personal profiles, because on LinkedIn, if someone's going to research your company, chances are it's just as likely for an employee to show up as it is for the company page to show up. And a lot of companies are like, well, I can't tell my employees what to do on LinkedIn. And while, yes, according to the end user agreement, you can't actually tell them that they have to upload a background image or they have to use this description of the company, if you educate them on the benefits of having a well-branded company on LinkedIn, well-branded personal profiles, it's kind of the rising tide lifts all ships.
Well, let me ask you real quick, what was it that prohibits a company from requiring an employee to do something on their LinkedIn?
Well, LinkedIn's end user agreement actually says that the employee owns their own profile. So a company can't force you to do anything with it. They can't force you to shut it down. They can't force you to share your connections. So they can't force you to add, any elements to it. Now, with the exception of if a company pays for LinkedIn, they've got some premium accounts, and specifically Sales Navigator. If they pay for a premium account, they do have access to some information, not all information. And of course, they own that particular account, and any information that goes with the account, when the employee leaves, the account leaves, and they lose that.
Okay.
But as far as the personal profile, the free profile on LinkedIn, as an employee, that's yours, that's your arena.
Well, I think that's something you're keying in on there that a lot of our audience may be curious about and may be concerned about if they run an organization, is employees putting something on social media that hurts the company, maybe something controversial or political, but what kind of control does a company have in that regard?
Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. So while a company can't tell them what elements, profile elements to put on their profile, they certainly can have a social media policy or a content sharing policy that gives guidelines. And in fact, they absolutely should have a policy that gives guidelines to their employees, what you can post about, what you can't post about. And there are, there's rewards. Maybe you can gamify the process if they share well and they get lots of good visibility for the company. But also, if they go outside the lines, if they share content that has not been approved, and the company itself can decide how specific they want to get about that. But there could definitely be some downsides, like getting fired. So you should absolutely have in your profile not in your profile. You should absolutely have in your social media policy or your content sharing policy what is allowed. And so a lot of companies will say, okay, you can share anything from the company page, anything from our blog post, obviously. You can share anything from these industry publications. You can share anything from these influencers in our industry. You can share public information from these clients. You cannot share anything religious. You cannot share anything political. Okay. You can't share anything private.
On their own personal, they're on their own personal Twitter.
On their own personal
your company
LinkedIn,
can tell
Twitter,
you, don't
Facebook.
post anything political.
And which is why, again, it might be a little bit different for Facebook.
Yeah.
So usually what happens, because LinkedIn, again, business, you're going to be on there for business. You're going to be connected to business people. So usually when they're making these guidelines, it's with an understanding that within LinkedIn, at least, people are going to keep it business related. Now, when it comes to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and other accounts where people have personal accounts with their friends, and of course they're sharing the political and the religious, the policy might say something like, you can't be connected to business relations, right? If you're going to be connected to business relations, no religion or politics. If you're connected, so just go through your friends and make sure you don't have any clients in there.
Right. Well, it's certainly more involved, especially with all the different types of social media out there today.
Exactly.
What are some other kind of corporate strategies or thoughts around social media? One thing I think some business owners and leaders are concerned about as they try to groom their younger folks is that maybe they're too digital and they're not communicating in person or on the phone enough with folks, or maybe they're concerned that their younger folks aren't building their career fast enough because they're too distracted by the phone and social media. What do you say about that?
Yeah, and I mean, in some cases, they're absolutely true, and that's where it's a real gray area, because the younger folks using social media, and again, this is not so much the case with LinkedIn, because it's not like you go on LinkedIn to have fun. Right?
You're saying it's no fun?
I'm going to go on LinkedIn and read the latest blog post by the Wall Street Journal. Awesome, good times. We're not looking at crazy cat videos. People are not going to be wasting time on LinkedIn. So right. I'm going to leave LinkedIn out of it a little bit, but certainly other social selling like Twitter, like Facebook, like Instagram, and for for realtors, even commercial realtors, Instagram can be extremely powerful because it's so visual, and so you might get some time wasting. So it's just about, are you achieving your goals, right? And I'm a big fan of the phone call. I'm a big fan of social media is only to warm up the connection, so that when you go to call them, it's a warm call and not a cold call, and they're a lot more likely to pick up the phone. So that's kind of my belief about social media. All social media, it's just about warming up those relationships and creating top of mind awareness and creating what I call a false sense of familiarity, but who cares as long as it's a sense of familiarity.
Yeah.
But having said that, if millennials or people who use social media actively, if they can produce and never pick up the phone, right, and only text, and because they're maybe working with their peers, good, let them go at it. Now it's when their activity on social media, their activity on social media goes up and their productivity goes down. That's when you have to have the conversation. But me personally, I'm about allowing our staff, at least, the freedom to use these different tools, and if they're using them effectively, not only more power to you, but how can I support you in this? What kind of training can I get for you? How can we help you take it to the next level?
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to ask you some more. I want to take a short break here, but when we get
Sure.
back, I'm going to ask Vivica about what's new in LinkedIn, what maybe some tools that and strategies in LinkedIn that people aren't using, and what's next? What are some apps and what are some resources that work well with LinkedIn? Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.